I think it should be fourth down.
I'm going to give it to you right now.
Gentlemen, this is the XFL.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of XFL Four Play, and it's coming to you on a Tuesday instead of a Monday, and I apologize for that. I did say at one point, hey, I'm going to do these every Monday, and then just 2 weeks later I screw that up, so it is what it is. Let's talk about the mid-season. We are finally past the halfway mark in the XFL. We're going to be talking about week 5, a little bit of week 5, a little bit of preview in week 6, and of course, as always, the XFL Power Rankings from your XFL expert TM. The Houston Roughnecks, the undefeated Houston Roughnecks, taking on the 1-4 at the 1-3 at the time, Seattle Dragons. And this game had a lot of drama, especially at the end, and I'll definitely get to that. But, I mean, Seattle had a 14-0 lead at one point. And I will say this about Houston. They unbelievably have the ability to find ways to win football games. And I say unbelievably because it just seems like one team can do it, and then my favorite team just can't. So you had B.J. Daniels getting the start in this game, which, again, I thought was going to happen. I kind of said they should do that because Brandon Silvers hadn't really been generating anything for the Dragons offense, and then B.J. came in and almost rallied them to a comeback against the Battlehawks. But a lot of intrigue in this game. I think the most intriguing thing were two things. It was one, June Jones yelling at referees.
Go ahead, get out of here. I don't want to talk anymore.
Get out of here, I don't want to talk to you. And then two, this play at the end of the game.
Over their bench.
And that's how the game. There's zeros on the scoreboard clock.
But it looked like when he went down, declared himself down, there was 1 second left.
So P.J. Walker, at the end of the game, he takes a knee and the clock runs out. There still should be 3 seconds left on the clock, so that would still give Seattle a chance to score. And it was a 9-point game, so they could have scored and taken it to overtime with a 3-point conversion. However, the refs left the field. The game was over. The officials on the broadcast, they say that the game had been ended. That's what they think would happen. And then the XFL releases an entire statement saying, hey, we screwed this up. This isn't right. Even at the one point, they're saying that the head of officiating for that has already been reprimanded and reassigned. You wouldn't see that from Roger Goodell. You would not see that from the NFL. And that is, I think, an important thing. It sucks because they can't just vacate the win. They can't just say, okay, well, we're going to replay this 3-second play. That's just silly. You can't fix that. What's done is done. But the fact that they go out of their way to explain what happened and why it should have been fixed and what was wrong, and then they already punished the guy for screwing it up, I think says miles for this league. And that's why this league, I think, actually has a chance to have some legs, because they know that, hey, we have to make these corrections, we have to make these fixes, and we have to do it now. I think it's just a good start. Moving on to game number 2. It's the New York Guardians taking on the Dallas Renegades. Now, the New York Guardians are coming off a big win against the LA Wildcats, the DC Renegades after a heartbreaking loss, or the DC Renegades, the Dallas Renegades coming off a heartbreaking loss to their in-state rival, the Houston Roughnecks. And Dallas looking for their first home win. And last week I had critiques of Landry Jones. I said he was not looking good, too many turnovers, making me question his leadership, and then he unfortunately gets injured. Whew, boy, this offense does not work without Landry Jones. I can't even name you the backup quarterback because all I was thinking of, why are you not running the ball? You got Cameron Artis-Payne. You have one of the better running offenses in the league. Instead, you rely on this guy throwing the football in the third quarter, and that led to destruction. The New York Guardians are just a different football team when Luis Perez is in at quarterback. They generated so many points in this one. And then this was a 6-6 game at halftime. It ends up being 30-12, including a pick 6. New York is playing at a different level. They're coming back up, and I think it's a similar dichotomy with DC Defenders, which we'll get to next. But there's a similar dichotomy where it's like, whoa, 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 they're starting to slip, and now they're coming back up and rising back up. And it'll be an interesting race, I think, in the East Division between D.C. and New York. And I wish I could say the same about Tampa and St. Louis. I think, yeah, the big takeaway from this was defense causing plays and making plays for New York. And, I mean, yes, Dallas had a cool, awesome kick return for a touchdown, but just wasn't enough offensively to win this game. And I think we're starting to see something different. Maybe Luis Perez was the right guy. I got a feel from Matt McGloin, because imagine being so bad. Imagine playing in the NFL, being behind Derek Carr, and then you end up in the XFL, and then being so bad in the XFL that you get benched for an AAF quarterback. You might as well hang it up, Matt. So now we move on to the first game of Sunday, and probably the biggest headlines from the Week 5 of the XFL. We had the St. Louis Battlehawks taking on the DC Defenders. It's a chance for the DC to get back on track after 2 huge blowout losses on the road. They're back home, but who are we kidding? We're not talking about the game. We don't care about the game. We're talking about the Twitter, the XFL Twitter. Just unbelievable work here. So most of this game, the storyline isn't the fact that Cardell Jones got benched. It's not the fact that it was a good defensive game and the defenders were getting back on track. No. It was the fact that we had another epic entry to the saga of the beer snake. And it got so big that the league commissioner, Oliver Luck, contributed to the beer snake and made it even bigger. And this is why I love this league so much. And this is why I always say that I saw a meme that said extra fun league. And this is why I truly believe it. Wait, Roger Goodell would never add to a beer snake. The beer snake wouldn't even get past 1 row. The beer snake would be destroyed in the NFL, not in the XFL. It is not only encouraged, it is a huge storyline from the week of the whole season. We're at the halfway point of the season, and I can't talk about the games, and I can't talk about the teams, and I can't talk about what's going on the field, because all I can think about is that freaking beer snake. A legend, the beer snake. Oh, by the way, DC beats St. Louis, ending their little streak of wins, and puts them to 3-2, so they are in a interesting situation in the East between New York, DC, and St. Louis, all 3-2, and then poor, sad Tampa Bay bringing up the rear as per usual. Final game of the weekend, XFL After Dark. Can't believe this. This game kicked off at 9 p.m. on the East Coast and 8 p.m. where I lived. And it was the Tampa Bay Vipers going into L.A. taking on the Wildcats. What a tale of 2 teams here, because Tampa starts out strong. Very first play of the game, they get a pick. They keep the momentum going. They had a 17-0 lead after the first quarter. Then the second quarter happened where they did score another touchdown, but so did L.A. They scored 20 points in the second quarter to make it 24-20 at halftime, and then everything just collapsed after that for Tampa Bay. It was a close one. They lose 41-34. It is depressing to see that happen, to have your team be up 24-6 and then watch them lose 41-34. I will say this about LA's offense. There's a reason why they have the best pass offense in the league. Josh Johnson and Norm Chow, the way that they are just slinging the football all across the field is incredible. Yes, they have their issues. You have a clip of Josh Johnson calling out Norm Chow after his 4th touchdown pass. This game had a lot going in either way. 2 1-3 teams that to me didn't look like 1-3 teams. These teams looked a lot better than their record. It's just they've been playing very quality opponents, and one team had to win. So LA goes to 2-3. Tampa falls to 1-4 with Seattle, and those 2 teams bringing up the rear in terms of wins and losses. I think this was a pivotal point in the season for Tampa, and I had to do it again. I laid off it after 1 win, but I got to be right back onto it after another loss. Fire Mark Trestman. Do it. Fire him. Or at least fire offensive coordinator. His play calling at the end of the half was just atrocious and not good. So that is the week in review for week 5 of the XFL. We are at the halfway point. So now let's get into the power rankings heading into week 6. As usual, we start from the bottom, then we work our way to the top. At number 8, I'm going to put the Seattle Dragons. Now, I thought about putting Tampa Bay here, and I go back and forth, and I think these 2 are interchangeable at 7 and 8 because both teams played hard and played well. They just couldn't find the W. One team, I think, in Seattle playing a better opponent in Houston, but I just I don't know. I feel like those two are interchangeable. But at number 8, it is the Seattle Dragons. At number 7, of course, I just said they're interchangeable with Tampa. Tampa Bay is at number 7. Drop it down for number 6. Seattle also on a steady decline. I don't know what to make of these two teams because at times they look really good and they look like great teams, and then they just one or two plays just don't go their way, and it kind of just the whole thing falls down on top of them. At number 6, I'm going to say LA Wildcats. They beat the Vipers and an unbelievable performance from Josh Johnson. I think he probably will end up in the NFL very soon, and I wouldn't be surprised if some teams try to nab him up because he's playing well. Him and PJ Walker, I think, have had the best, resumes for the NFL. Just in terms of passing. Now, Jordan Tamu, I think, could fit somewhere, but we'll see. I don't know. Who knows? Now to number 5, I'm going to go with the Dallas Renegades. This is a team, I don't know what to make of them either. Sometimes they look like they should be in the top 4, and then other times they just make too many mistakes, and I don't know where to put them. And after this loss to New York, I gotta move them down to 5. At number 4, Luis Perez. Get this man a raise because he has resurrected the dead New York Guardians who looked just awful a few weeks ago. He has resurrected them up into the top 4 of the XFL, and especially after this performance against the Dallas Renegades, how can you not move New York up? I think they finally figured out their identity. They finally figured out who they are. They when Matt McGloin was in, they had delay of game penalties, false starts, all this stuff, and it doesn't seem the same with Luis Perez. And it seems like they have a lot more confidence in offensive play calling. So who knew the AAF guy would be dumb to take over for a former NFL guy? What a world we live in. And at number 3, moving down a slot, it's the St. Louis Battlehawks. Again, I don't think they're a bad football team. I think they're one of the better teams, and they're going to really be fighting for a playoff spot, and it'll be interesting. I could see them as the final 4 teams in the playoffs. It's just they lost against the DC Defenders, and a hard-fought game, but they just couldn't come up with a W, and they moved them down a spot. And the comeback of the DC Defenders, another story. How many times have we heard this in the XFL where a backup has resurrected a team? I just said it a few minutes ago even with the New York Guardians. But the DC Defenders moved back up to number 2, played incredibly well at home. They're a different team when they are at home. And, of course, how can I not talk about the legendary Beer Snake wiggling his way up all the way to number 2. And at number 1, they're the undefeated team. They're the best team. I don't even need to say any much more. PJ Walker, Cam Phillips, that's all I need to say. Houston Roughnecks are the best team in the XFL. There's no question about that. And they are number 1. So this has been another episode of XFL Four Play. As I said earlier, Loud Sports will be up on Thursday this week, and then hopefully next week we'll be back to our regular programmed time of Tuesday, but this will be up on Thursday this week, and we'll be talking about midseason review of XFL and all that and more. This show hopefully will be back on Monday, maybe on Tuesday. I don't even know at this point. What are your power rankings? Who would you have at number 8 or number 1 and all this stuff? Am I right? Am I kind of reasonable? Well, we'll see. Because I doubt it. You're wrong because I'm the XFL expert. TM. Thanks so much. And, like it on Facebook, like it on YouTube, and comment and all that stuff, and subscribe and click bells and whatever. I will see you next week to talk more about the XFL.